You know, there are a lot of people who can't wait for retirement. They count the days, the minutes, the hours. Well, not my guest today. Linda Carson has been in front of a TV camera for about 60 years. And if we're lucky, we'll be around for another 60 years. She started as the weather girl at Channel 11 Atlanta. And now today, she is probably one of the most recognized people here on the Suncoast as host of Suncoast View on ABC7. And Linda, it is such a treat to have you and to be with you on camera again.
Again, yes.
I did have a short stint there at Suncoast View, and I loved it so much. And now doing Suncoast People, and you're here now. And it's my turn to ask the questions of you.
Okay, I'll tell you anything you want to know.
Oh, you know, it's just us.
Okay.
Yeah.
You won't tell anybody.
No, I won't tell
I knew you
anybody.
wouldn't.
There's
Yes.
nobody else here. It's just us. What gets you out of bed every morning?
Love to go to work. I like the excitement, the energy, seeing people, being around people, unusual things happening. When I come home from work about 4:30 in the afternoon, I'm so tired. But the next morning when my alarm clock goes off at 4:30, I can hardly wait to get started. I'm just so excited about the day. So I think the adrenaline that I get from working and being involved in things keeps me on the go, and because I'll be 84 this summer. And when I started in Atlanta, you mentioned Atlanta. When I started in Atlanta, those of us on television had a meeting. I was the only woman, and the woman who was speaking said, "I want you to know, honey, that they don't like women over 30 in television. So just get ready to find a new job after you're 30." And here I am at 84, and I just signed a new contract with ABC7.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations. I hope you're getting what you want out of the contract.
Yes, I love working. I'm getting to be there another year, yes.
Well, and hopefully many more years, unless you find another show that will steal you away.
Not many people are looking for 84-year-old women to come in and start out on a new job. I am perfectly happy where I am. Isn't that strange? Totally happy with where I am.
It's a great show, and you do such a great job on the show. And you've had some adventures. You've had some experiences on Suncoast View along the way, haven't you?
Yes, we just got back from a Disney cruise, which was very, very exciting. We met a lot of interesting people. I made a terrible mistake. On a 6 o'clock live shot, this darling character came up to me and I said, "Oh, Mickey, I've loved you all my life. You're my favorite person." And then when it was over, somebody said, "That was Donald Duck." So I spent the rest of the day apologizing to Donald Duck for mistaking him for Mickey Mouse. It's a wonder I'm still on television.
Well, you know, worse things I think have happened. I mean, you didn't get kicked by any goats while on the Disney cruise.
Everybody reminds me of that. Yes.
How do you feel about that? And everybody's, "Oh yeah, wasn't she the lady that was she got kicked by a goat on TV?" How do you feel about that?
I've been doing television news for 60 years. I've interviewed all the presidents through Obama. I was in the room with George Bush on 9/11, and what do people remember me for? Getting knocked down by a goat.
I was going to say that damn goat, but I'll say it for you.
We were in the goat pen, 4-H Club, Manatee County Fair, and I was petting the goat, and the goat started chewing on my pants. I wish I hadn't said those words, but I said, "Stop eating my pants." And the goat put her head down, and I flipped over. I went flying.
Yeah.
My big thought was, am I going to come down in goat poop? Linda Carson, ABC7, would you not eat my pants? Ah! But no, 4-H clubbers keep their stalls very clean.
Wow. Thankful for something, I guess.
So I got up, walked back over, and the goat tried to get me again. So that was very exciting.
I have to touch on, you mentioned President George W. Bush the day
of 9/11.
Of 9/11, and you were in that classroom. What did you witness? What did you see? What did you feel when that all went down that morning?
Well, we were in the classroom with President Bush because they had one person from network, Ann Compton. They had local station, that was us, and they had one person from the school board. And we were standing back here, and the president was about as far away from me as you are, and he had kids reading in front of him. So he walked in and sat down. We had been in that room for several hours getting set up, and the Secret Service kept us there, so we had no idea anything was happening. And he was reading with the kids, and then his chief of staff came over and whispered in his ear, and I thought he said, "Time to move on." But the president let the kid finish reading, said, "What a good job," stood up, and they had told us to leave our phones outside. Ann Compton still had hers in her hand, and she said, "Mr. President, do you know that a second plane just hit the World Trade Center?" And he said, "We're going to deal with that in a minute." And he started toward the media center. We were supposed to go around a different way, but by this time we just went right beside him. He never, I thought a president was like a puppet. Somebody told him what to say and pull the strings. Nobody was telling him what to say. We went straight to the media center, and he addressed the world because all the networks were there because they were following him to the school. So he addressed the world, and I felt so proud to be American, so strong. We all suddenly just held hands. We all just held hands. People, we didn't even know who was beside us, but it was a feeling of strength, of coming together, and we're not going to let this happen. So it was a feeling of not fear, anger, I think, and pride and protection. We've got to go in and protect our people.
And resolve, maybe.
And resolve, yes, yes.
And as that day unfolded, of course, you went back to the station and filed your report, and all broke loose. And you've experienced so many major events and covered a lot of major events. I mean, you were in Atlanta in the 1960s, and you weren't always, and I put in air quotes, the weather girl, because you became a reporter.
Yes.
And maybe you can reflect on what it was like in the 1960s. I mean, you had met and gotten to know Dr. King,
yes.
Martin Luther King Jr.
I was the first female reporter, and my cameraman was the first black cameraman, so they put us together to cover the civil rights movement. Clarence Gordon was his name, and so we would go out and interview Dr. King and Mrs. King anytime they were home. But then when Dr. King traveled, they said, well, it's not really nice for a woman to go cover the man, so you cover Mrs. King. So everywhere they went, I was there. When they would go to other cities, when Mrs. King went, I went. But I was over at their house a lot. Dr. King would sort of hold court at Pritchard's restaurant, so anytime the media wanted to ask him anything, we could just go in, pull up a stool, and talk to him. We covered all of his sermons, 3 hours long, sometimes they were. My dad was a Baptist minister, and I got to know Dr. King's father very well. We called him Old Dr. King, but he knew my dad. And those were the miniskirt days. We were in an elevator once, and old Dr. King turned to me and said, "Missy, you go home and put on some decent clothes or I'm going to call your daddy." And my daddy would have been right up there too because I was wearing a miniskirt. But the night Dr. King was shot, I was anchoring the news. I had my co-anchor, Bill Conover, and I, and all the wire machines went crazy. And we ran back to see what it was, and it said that he had been shot. So news was very different then. We called the mayor of Atlanta and told him, Ivan Allen, and told him that Dr. King had just been shot. He said he was going out to tell Mrs. King. So we said, we'll follow you. Because we didn't want the media, ourselves as the media, to go charging in. We wanted her to hear it from, in a calmer way. So right after I went in and talked to her, I said to her, because he had been, I believe he was stabbed once before, and I kept saying, he'll be fine, he'll be fine, he'll be fine. But of course, by then he was already gone. But I stood beside her during the funeral march, and you just didn't think it could happen, because things were going so well and people were getting along together, and then suddenly the leader of the peace was gone.
I would love to have you on again, because there's so many avenues that we can go down. I'll ask this one more question, and at least for today we can touch on some other things. And I just want to tell the folks who are watching, there will be multiple interviews and multiple segments of Suncoast People with Linda, because you have...
Because I'm so old, we can get it in one.
And I have lots of questions. I always have. Don't ask me for answers. I don't have any answers. But I do have questions. And how do you separate the journalist from because you became an acquaintance of almost a friend or acquaintance of the Kings, because you covered them so much. You mentioned being in their home so many times and standing with Mrs. King. How do you know where that line is and how to cross or not cross that line from journalist to being friend? Or did you never cross that line?
I did feel like I was a friend. She invited me after her husband was gone. She invited my son to the birthday parties for her kids sometimes, and she told me at one of those she had been seen with an orchestra leader. And I asked her about that, and she said, I'll never be able to have a romantic relationship because I've always got to carry on my husband's tradition. I've always got to carry on the tradition, and that would hurt if I were to marry somebody else. But then when they first made his birthday a legal holiday, she invited me back to Atlanta. Everybody from all over was coming to interview her, and she wanted me to do the interview and be in the room with her, and my cameraman to shoot the interview. So we sat there all day long with her that day. And it was wonderful because just recently, on Martin Luther King's birthday, we had people, Martin Luther King III was supposed to come to Sarasota, and Andrew Young, and Martin Luther King III, who was a little boy when I knew him, invited me to come to the church and to hear him and to sit with his group. So that little boy remembered me, so that really brought tears to my eyes.
Oh, that's sweet. That is really sweet. And it is difficult when you build a rapport, a type of relationship with somebody who you spend a lot of time covering as a journalist, and you can't help but build a connection depending on who that person is.
Now there was one.
Oh?
Yes.
And remember, this is just between the two of us.
Oh, well, Danny Rowling, the serial killer, when he had killed I think 8 people he was charged with and convicted for. 5 he was convicted for, but there were many others. But when he was at Stark, and this happened in Gainesville. And when my daughter was going to law school at the University of Florida, she would not listen to me and get a safe place to stay. She lived with 10 other people, and people were coming and going all the time. So I said to her, that's not safe, and she rolled her eyes. So I got the Sarasota County Sheriff to tell her that. She looked at him and rolled her eyes. So I wrote to Danny Rowling, the serial killer, and I said, could I do an interview with you to warn my daughter and to teach us all to be safe? And he wrote back and said, yes, I've turned down the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times and everybody that's asked, but if I can save one soul, then I'll be glad to do the interview. So I spent several days interviewing Danny Rowling on death row.
Wow.
There were 2 people. He was nice, funny, charming, good looking, and then he was the man that would kill you.
Yeah.
If he said, we laughed, and I said, oh, I know you only like young girls with long black hair, and he said, my rule is easy as easy gets. So don't get around me in the dark.
Wow.
But I felt like he was sort of like being my friend, trying to be my friend, so that was a little scary.
Sure.
That was a line I did not want to cross.
No, you didn't become pen pals
No.
then.
Well, he wrote me a lot of letters,
Sure.
but they would be written, my name on the envelope would be written in red, and there would be like blood drops coming from my name. So that was a little weird.
Just a little.
Yeah, I covered his execution, so I was there for that. News goes in all directions.
It sure does, as do careers.
Yeah.
And you met your late husband, Bud, and where did you and Bud meet?
Bud was head coach at Georgia Tech, and I was anchoring the news and reporting at Channel 11 in Atlanta. And it was a Friday, a Jewish holiday, and the sports director didn't come to work that day, so they said, "Oh, Carson's really mean. Oh, he's tough. Who's going to go interview him?" And I said, "Me." When I got there, I said, we did the interview, and I said, I knew nothing about sports. And afterwards I said, I heard you were divorced. So am I. And I have this book that helped me so much through my divorce. Maybe it'll help you. And I would like to have it back. It's got my phone number, so if you'll just call me when you're through with it.
Oh, smooth.
That's how I met my husband.
And from there, you became a blended family.
Yes, he had 2 kids. I had 1, and then we had 1 together. So we did. And of course, football coaches are gone a lot, so it was usually just me and the kids. So we had a great time, and I'm still so close to my stepkids and my own kids too.
That's wonderful. Your daughter, Kathy, lives right next door.
She does.
How wonderful is that?
Oh, she used to work at ABC 7 as a reporter. She's an attorney. So she thought television looked a lot more fun than law. But then she found that law paid a lot better, so she went back to law.
A lot of things pay better
yes,
than
but nothing's
TV.
more fun.
It is great fun. That's for sure. But with that, Bud moved, and you and the kids moved with Bud from Pittsburgh. Yes.
Yes, we went. He promised me when we got engaged that he would stay at Georgia Tech forever because Atlanta's my home.
Sure.
I live next door to my parents. He was fired within 6 months and thought that was the end. That was the end of his career. Then he went to the Steelers, and they were in 3 Super Bowls, and then he went to the Rams in Los Angeles. They were in a Super Bowl against the Steelers, and then they didn't go to the Super Bowl the next year, so all the coaches got fired. But we went from there to Baltimore, Kansas City, New York, Cleveland, Philadelphia. So I came to Sarasota from Philadelphia. I had worked at 12 stations by the time I came here.
As Bud moved from team to team, you moved from station to station.
Yes.
Plus packing up and moving the kids with you as well. How did you balance being supportive of Bud, very, high-profile job, you working in TV, which is a high-profile job, having the kids? How did you juggle all of that and all the moves?
The moves were hard because I always had to find a job. A couple of times I stayed back with the kids until I found a job. But I usually felt that in a month I could put the house on the market, buy another house, find the best schools for the kids, and move. But I had to find a job. So I ended up working in every one of the markets. I didn't have a blank space where I wasn't working. I thought I might here. We came here because Bud retired. He hit 65 and he retired from the Philadelphia Eagles. So we moved to Sarasota. He said in an interview on television, you can only fish so long. So he went back to coaching for St. Louis, the St. Louis Rams, and they went to a Super Bowl. But fortunately for me, we kept our home here.
Kept home here. But that was a lot of work. I mean, looking back, do you ever say to yourself, how on earth did I do that all? Or was it just came naturally to be able to do all of that?
I'm so close to the people because there were so many coaches. There were like 13 coaches that usually move together, often move together. I'm so close to their wives still, and close to the kids. That's one reason, because it was us against the world.
Right.
We were holding hands and figuring it out. So it really brought the family closer together, I think. I was always worried about getting a job. Even now, after I've had this one job for 27 years, I still say to people when I meet them on the street, how'd you get your job? You know, I'm always looking for that in case I have to have it again.
So this new contract you've got, does that give you a little comfort and security to know that you're good to go for at least another year?
Yes, it does. I mean, how many 84-year-olds get a new contract? So I feel very comforted for that, because I really do enjoy what I'm doing.
And you've done a lot at ABC7. I mean, you were a reporter, you were anchoring, and now doing Suncoast View for how many years?
Almost 8. We're coming
8
up on our
years?
8th anniversary in a
8
couple of
years?
months.
Wow.
And when I came there, I was anchoring weekends
Yep.
and reporting 3 days a week. And then I was anchoring mornings and going out and reporting and doing a part of the 6 o'clock news every night. I did Amazing Suncoast Women. Suncoast Scene, I think I did that for 15 years. So, you know, in any career, I think it changes. What you're doing changes. So I look at it as like a basketball player who's like poised, you know, balanced like this. You've got to be balanced and ready to move fast.
You know, and when we were working together at Suncoast View, one of the things that, well, many things I admired about you and continue to admire about you.
Oh, thank you.
But is your flexibility and your just rolling with the punches, that no matter what happens, you're prepared and you're ready.
Oh, that comes with old age and practice. Because there's one thing I have learned. I used to go in when I was anchoring the mornings. I would go in and read through the whole news show on camera before we went on the air, so I knew what was coming, and there wouldn't be any surprises. A lot of anchors just walk on the air 1 minute before they're going to read, and they're happy that way. For me, practice. That's what I always count on, and it's always worked for me.
And plan what I like to call Plan B or Plan C, because folks at home might not notice, but Linda always walks in, and you'll see on the table in front of her pieces of paper, and that's your script. And why do you have those pieces of paper in front of you?
Well, you know, a lot of Suncoast View we're just talking, but the segments when we're introducing people, they're all scripted to video, and people, there may be 5, 6, 7, 8 people that are going by that script. So if I get off script, it's throwing a lot of people off. Well, teleprompters have been known to go backwards or stop or go black.
Technology.
Oh my goodness. So I have the security. It's money in the bank. I have the security of having my scripts in my hand, and if everything else fails, I'll just look down and read.
Some people call you the Betty White of Sarasota. How do you feel about that?
Oh, I wish. She was always so upbeat and funny.
Did you ever meet her?
No. I would have loved to have met her.
Because you were in LA for a while.
Yes, we were in LA. I worked out there for 5 years at KTTV, which was so funny because, let's see, that was in the 70s and 80s, mid 80s. And on the Disney cruise, that station was on the Disney cruise, and one of the cameramen said to my daughter, "Didn't she used to work at KTTV?" So all those years, he probably was 10 at the time, but he remembered.
But remembered you at
Yes.
being Channel 11, right?
Channel
at
11,
KTTV.
yes.
What advice do you have for people who are thinking about moving to Sarasota to retire, or maybe who've just moved to Sarasota and have retired?
Don't just think about the beaches. Look into all the other things to do. I swore when I moved here I would walk on the beach every day. That's all I needed. But then you need other things to do, and there are other things to do. When you move here, you're thinking like a tourist, boating and fishing and being on the beach. But there's so many other things. So you can get deeply involved in the community, because I think we all need community. We all need to feel like we belong. I think one of the best things in Sarasota, I was down by City Hall one day, and the mayor was walking by. And said, "Oh, hey, Linda," and started to talk about something. And then one of the judges saw us talking and came over and started to talk. And then this homeless guy came over, and he was giving his opinion. So here we are, these very different people all having a conversation, but you know them. You're not just thinking of the judge as this person up on a bench. You know him. So it's the kind of place where you can get deeply involved. Well, you have. You moved here, what, 3 years ago?
And a little over 2.5 years
You
ago.
have gotten deeply involved in the community, and that's so satisfying.
It is satisfying, Linda, because if you call a place a home, at least for me, I want to be part of the community. I want to be engaged and giving back to the community.
Yes.
And that's something you certainly do as well, because you make a lot of public appearances and you support a lot of local organizations that are outside the four walls of ABC 7 Studio. Tell me about some of those experiences you've had of, well, for instance, the circus.
Oh, yes. I was on the board of directors for the Circus Arts Conservatory because they're such a great part of our history. When John Ringling moved the circus winter quarters here back in the 20s, they had money. They were still doing shows. And when everybody went through the Depression, because we had those circus people here, it was really helpful to our economy. And they raised their families here. And some of the greatest performers in the world live right here in Sarasota. So I had gotten deeply involved in them. I'm so proud of them. They are doing such great work.
An amazing organization. It
Yes.
really, and it is such a deep and proud part of Sarasota's history. And I also want to thank you for riding with me in Project Pride SRQ's annual car parade. And I think we've got a couple of pictures and maybe a little clip of video. Let's take a little clip of the video, and we'll be right back. Oh, we're going to have a great time in this parade.
This is such a thrill. I hear laughter up ahead.
Here we go.
People are having fun. Oh my goodness, this is exciting. Hello there! Hi everybody!
And just the part where you and I are taking off, because I had actually that camera on.
Okay.
And so we'll come back out of that. And
The funniest thing about my daughter, somehow somebody gave her a pin, so she pinned it on her purse, and we were buying some things in the white market, black and white at UTC Mall, and she laid her purse on the counter, and the girl said, "Well, I like your pen. I'm going to give you my 30% discount." Wasn't that nice?
wow. And you have been an ally, a strong ally of the LGBTQ
Well, I've got
community.
a gay stepson. So Cliff came out to me first of all. So I've always had an obligation to him to sort of be his offensive line.
Absolutely.
Sometimes he doesn't take my advice and stand behind me. I told you that guy wasn't for you.
But that's what a mom does.
Yes.
And she stands by and stands behind her kids no matter what. And again, you've been such a wonderful ally, and
Well,
for
things have
Project
gotten
Pride,
much better. Still, I'm afraid so much is on the surface. Like so many movements, it's the in thing right now to cheer on the gay community, but I'm not sure I would go around these people at night in the dark. Which I tell Cliff, just watch your back.
Watch your back, absolutely. Linda Carson, Linda Faye Carson. Would you come back for another interview, another conversation someday?
Of course I would.
Because we haven't even begun. I only have a couple cards here, and I've got a stack of cards back here of questions and things for us to talk about. Thank you so much. I'm from the bottom of my heart, I'm grateful to you for your support and for being here. And I just want to say thank you for watching Suncoast People, and I'm Robert Tim. And if you have any ideas or suggestions of people who would be a good interview, someone who has a story to tell, someone who maybe has climbed that second mountain of their career, just like the title of David Brooks's book that I highly recommend, write us. The email's right here on the screen, and we'd love to hear from you. So again, thanks for watching. Have a great day.